Hello everyone, today I have a great pleasure to talk with Melanie. Melanie is executive producer of the Global Summit. What is your story, Melanie?
I'm a California girl that discovered the world early on in my college years, and actually in China. I really woke up to what's happening around the world as far as the environmental issues that we're facing in our generation and with population. And I really saw China as a microcosm of what the planet was facing in the next 40 or 50 years. I felt like, wow, we need to work really hard to create a better world. And from there, I was kind of addicted to being abroad, and actually had big reverse culture shock when I went back after a semester in Asia back in '94. So this is a while ago, and continued studying abroad in Europe, learned a few languages, and it was through the Monterey Institute of International Studies, now Middlebury International Institute, that I started traveling in sub-Saharan Africa and doing field work in population and human security. And that really woke me up to the brilliance of indigenous people. And I saw this just incredible wisdom of how people have been living closer to the land and connected with nature, and saw that that's actually what our world is missing. So this philosophy that I'm describing is really the basis of an organization that came out of that early work in Africa and appreciating these local cultures and local knowledge. And that's called Empowerment Works. And it's a simple statement. Empowerment works. Disempowerment and dependency does not work. When people feel that they're told that they're poor and that they don't know the answers, and they feel that they don't, and they're not really bringing those gifts and that innate genius forward. And so, we talk a lot about education and the idea of optimizing and unleashing human potential. And that is really the trim tab, if you will, of how the world can be a better place. People recognizing their own genius, bringing that together and applying it in their own community. So that's the philosophy of Empowerment Works. But over the first 6 years of that, I realized that as a small organization working at the grassroots level, it's really difficult to shift a global system or the way humanity is operating. I know it sounds really lofty. My moment of truth and my big aha was actually in Africa again in 2007 at the World Social Forum. And there I saw 40,000 grassroots activists and different organizations, passionate, sharing local voices. Really, these were the people doing the work, right? And talking about the issues that really mattered. However, there were only 2 video cameras that I saw in the entire event. Imagine 40,000 people. And at the same time, you had a lot of protests and disappointment with the World Economic Forum. And, here's East Africa surrounded by refugee camps in the north and climate impacts and abject poverty in different communities around there. And, this is where the problem is. And the World Economic Forum is saying, we want to make the world a better place, but you don't have the representation. And then climate change is really left out of that conversation for the most part back in 2007. And so it was like, oh, this simple idea. What about bringing the world's social, economic, and environmental movements together and having a real global conversation? And so it was actually on a plane going back from that trip to Africa, going back to Los Angeles, where I was living for several years, a social, economic, and environmental forum. And that coincided with the framework of Empowerment Works and something called Partners in Empowerment, which is a kind of an online framework that has the potential to scale this system. So, it's one thing to talk about, there's a system, but of course, technology has the ability to scale that and bring people together, and business, media, different sectors in a way that's relevant to their own work, into kind of an economic collaboration with the potential to correspond and support local solutions. So So it's this whole social architecture and that needed to be put out on a web platform. And then after being at the World Social Forum, there was a vision came about to actually enabling this through a large live event. And that was 2007. A lot of amazing other social entrepreneurs got involved. The producers of the Green Festival that was put on by Global Exchange and Green America, which is one of the largest kind of eco festivals, the producers of that said, why don't you call it the Global Summit? And people go, oh, the Global Summit? Really? Like, who do you think you are? And I say, I'm really not a megalomaniac. I didn't think of it. It just seemed to fit because it also is at the heart of this event. I don't know if I prefaced that. Yeah, so the idea of the Global Summit was born. And that has been really the core of my work and also Empowerment Works has been, the facilitating organization since it was conceived in 2007, launched in 2008. And the idea of the Global Summit is that it's also very much a civic engagement event. So basically, we do need a platform that is as big as humanity, where we start, putting our little differences aside and say, you know what, we have a bigger calling in this time.
How do you find the power to convince all those people who might be influencer to help you to make this thing happen, this conference, Global Summit?
Well, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. Honoring people's genius, really. People do want to contribute, and I think people who are leaders really do care about making their leadership count and having an impact. And so, yeah, you need to be smart. You need to find out what they care about. And the design of the Global Summit really has something unique for everyone. So, for example, in Tokyo next August, we have 5 impact teams, and there's a lot of roles for leaders in there. So in the first summit, we found extraordinary leaders in each of our sectors. We have 6 sectors, and the way it was framed was we're coming together to identify, really sourcing from the community, what are the guiding principles for sustainability in each of the 6 sectors that we represent in this forum. And so artists in action, responsible media groups, educational institutions, collaborating nonprofits, social entrepreneurs, and sustainable businesses, right? So who doesn't want to be seen as an influencer in the sector that they care about?
So what is the price to be a leader, to be a woman, and to do all these great things?
If I wasn't so committed to this, if this weren't such a deep purpose, there's no way I could do it, because it is really challenging. It can be very lonely going into a new city, not really knowing anyone, being far away from my best friends. And, I think I'm pretty lucky because I actually really like uncertainty. So doing things that are uncertain, and my need for security and certainty is very low. So that makes that easier to be in a new situation and not knowing what's going to come.
So I think it's good to understand what is your next big project. So you are now in Tokyo. So can you share with us what you're planning to do in Tokyo next year?
Tokyo 2020. This will be the Global Summit 7. Very auspicious year. Our framework is actually 7 stages to sustainability. That's the kind of model for how to bring together and empower communities. And it's going to be the magnum opus of summits. And actually, the program has evolved into an 8-day open innovation extravaganza, kicking off with a cultural reception. Then there's a leaders forum, which is more of like the kind of think tank conference. It's less of a conference, more of a do tank, with 5 impact teams. We've had 4 impact teams in the last several summits. This one is One Ocean, Thriving Cities, Learning 4.0, Wellbeing 360, and Feminomics. So that's Feminomics is going to be really interesting to this group. And we're building teams that work together, get to know each other, teach each other, co-create policy, technology, and on-the-ground solutions and they send a champion that can really lead that solution into a hackathon with a fresh team of supporters and designers that turn those concepts or ideas or projects into prototypes for something called the global pitch. Those big ideas are shared with the world and they get more attention, get refined, and then we're actually following up for the first time in 2020 with a really world-class accelerator for each of the 15 champions that will be pitching. And so that's our greater commitment to long-term measurable impact coming out of the Global Summit. And we're leading up with that. We have a webcast series that's starting just next month called Voices 365.
Right. So for all people who are watching this video and for members of our group, please follow Melanie about the preparation for the summit, which will happen next August, just after the Olympic Games. So it will be a very exciting time to be. And Melanie, please share all information you think it's good for all people who want to participate, who want to support, or who want to just be informed. So we also want to know who is Melanie when she is not in this project, if is that possible. So who is your favorite personal brand and why?
Right now, the first person that came to mind is Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and her no-nonsense commitment to doing whatever New Zealand can to make the world livable and save Gaia. It's just incredible, so inspiring.
And what is your favorite company brand or your brand who you really like and why?
I love Patagonia. I love the integrity and the honesty and how they're modeling ways that corporations can give back. They donated all of their tax break to climate change solutions, and they're very transparent about what they're doing and how it's working or not working. It's just awesome, especially in something like clothing. I mean, there's many great ones. I also really love The Body Shop. The founder, before it was taken over by some new company, they started community sourcing, and just any brands that are really giving livelihoods to indigenous communities is pretty awesome.
Melanie, thank you so much for this great interview.
Thank you so much, Edward. theglobalsummit.org. You can find where to sign up, be joining the team, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you. Is it possible? It's how is it possible? So that's it. Got to keep that spirit.
Thank you, Melanie.